For more resources, visit rymonline.org.
The Local Youth Worker is a daily podcast that's centered on 5 questions each week. Ranging from the practical to the professional, we're looking for answers to the questions you're asking. Whether you're in full-time, part-time, or even volunteer youth ministry, this podcast is for you.
All right, everybody. Welcome to our Friday show. We've been talking to Joe Carter all this week about his book, the NIV Life Hacks Bible, that he assembled with 365 articles. It's a very helpful, practical approach to scripture reading. And so today on the show, we typically talk to people about books and we ask questions about books. And before we get into that, I was going to talk to Joe a little bit about his reading habits, because I want to say, Joe, you and I are friends on Facebook, and it seemed like one time I saw the list of books that you read in a year. And so, Joe, about how many books do you read a year on average?
The last couple of years, I've averaged about 110 to 120 books a year.
Okay. And so 110 and 120 books. So about how many a month are you reading?
I try to shoot for 10 a month, every month.
Okay. And so my question to that is, how have you been able to accomplish that? What steps have you taken to read more? Because, I mean, again, part of the reason we're asking these questions on Friday about books is we believe people are to be lifelong students and that it's important to read. So what are some ways in which you've been able to, knock out about 10 books a month?
Yeah, a few years back, I've always told myself I'm a lifelong learner. I'm going to be doing this the rest of my life. And then I looked at my actual skill and what I was doing. I wasn't reading that many books. I'd read maybe, if I was lucky, 10 a year. So I decided I'm going to have to take control of that and take control of my schedule. And so I started setting aside an hour and a half a day. Usually it's time that I would spend watching TV or Netflix. And I just schedule that in my schedule that I'm going to read for an hour and a half a day, because I'm a pretty slow reader. But I found that if I read an hour and a half a day and then I listen to audiobooks when I'm in my car, I can really, it's just surprising how many books you can get through in a year. And I've got to the point now, I try to be intentional with the books I choose, and not just to read a book just to check it off my list and say I've read this many books, but try to find that really shape me and help me grow. And the more books I read, the more they kind of connect, and it seems to make another book in the subject easier to read. So, and you fit ideas together in a better way. So it's not just about reading a lot, but reading a lot to gain a lot out of it, to really build a system in your head of what the world is like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so do you, just thinking of, getting all of these books, do you have like next month books kind of queued up in your mind? Because it seems like if you're trying to be intentional about the books that you're reading, you've got to be forward thinking and think, okay, here are the books I'm focusing on this month. Next month, these are going to be the ones coming up. Do you have any kind of system like that?
Yeah, I try to have certain categories. I have a history. I have a section on big ideas, like what is the big idea books that I should be reading. Usually something on science and technology, and a novel or two. So by keeping these kind of different categories, I kind of make sure that I'm not overbalanced in one area, that I kind of know to keep learning in all these different areas. Like, for example, recently I've decided I need to learn more about science. And so I've really started digging into physics and learning things that I didn't learn in school. And that just kind of opens my eyes to the wonders of God's world in a way that I wouldn't if I hadn't been intentional about, reading an area that I wouldn't normally read, because it's not something I need from work. It's not something I read to chat with my friends about. It's just something that helps me gain a better perspective on God's world.
Yeah, that's great. That's some great advice and motivation for those of us who need to be reading a little bit more. So that's helpful to think through. And so some of the questions I wanted to ask you today is just, as you finish this resource, the NIV Life Hacks Bible, and you have 365 articles in there, and you cite a lot of sources. What are just some of the books that kind of come to mind that really help shape the concept of this resource?
That's a tough question, because I just finished on parenting. That's kind of on the same kind of developing habits for parents to teach their kids. And so it's all the books now are just a big jumble in my head. So it's kind of hard to say. But I have each of the entries usually has a footnote. And there's like 700 footnotes in the Life Hacks Bible. And just about every footnote links to a resource that I would just highly recommend there. I try to find the best I could. And there's some are just web articles, some are books, but there's some awesome books in the footnotes section there.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend people to look at the footnotes. And just out of curiosity, did the book, and I'm forgetting who wrote it, Power of Habit. Is that Charles Duhigg? Is that right?
Yeah, Charles Duhigg. Yeah, he's the one that I took almost everything about how to habit formation from his book. It's a really good book for understanding the power of habits and how they affect us and how to develop them.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering if he had influenced that at all. And so, just also, what are some books that you are currently reading? I know we just talked about 10 a month, but what are some of those that you're going through that you really would recommend to others and that have been helpful?
Well, over the past 6 months to a year, I've been reading the Building Healthy Church series that's produced by Nine Marks and it's published by Crossway. And they're just really short books on stuff like discipling, evangelism, prayer. And they're some of probably the best resources I've ever found for Christian leaders. I would recommend that everybody in the church read these books, especially pastors and church leaders. They're just really practical. A lot of books, there are a lot of 300-page books that could have been written in 60 pages, got the point across. And that's kind of the way these books are. They don't waste your time with a bunch of fluff. They just get to the point.
Yeah, I've appreciated those as well because, like you said, they're just very accessible. They're not these huge volumes, and oftentimes people can be intimidated by a certain subject when they see, okay, well, here's a recommended volume and it's 400 pages, and there are those books you read sometimes where you think, okay, this could have been 100 pages shorter, and so it's nice to have those resources that can just be very concise and give you what you need, and it's not watered down at the same time. So those are very helpful. Are there any other things you're reading that you're enjoying right now?
Lately, I've gone back and read a lot of Andy Crouch books. Andy Crouch used to be the editor for Christianity Today. His book on culture making, Strong and Weak, Playing God. He's just an excellent writer. He's got a new book about the I can't think of the family
TechWise Family.
TechWise Family. Yeah, that's just an excellent book for parents and for, I think, youth pastors should really read that. His books are just, again, very practical, very biblically oriented resources. They're very helpful. And this TechWise Family is a really good book for parents to read. Another one that's in kind of the same vein is Tony Reinke's 12 Ways Your Phone is Changing You. Mm-hmm. It's, the title makes it sound kind of basic, but it's probably one of the best books on technology I've read in a long time, and how technology isn't just something that we just pick up. It's something that changes us. So that's a very good book that I think all parents should read.
Absolutely. And Tony Reinke put a lot of work into that. You can tell through his footnotes there. He did a whole lot of research. So that was, a very helpful resource that we've definitely recommended on this podcast before. And Andy Crouch as well. Yeah, he is just probably, one of the most thoughtful writers currently. I love anything he writes, and it's just, he writes in a way that you want to kind of pause and meditate on, a certain sentence and think about what he's communicating, because he does communicate in such a helpful way. So that's good. Well, any other books you want to throw in there at the end?
I can't think of any. That's the main ones I can come to the top of my head here.
All right. Well, those are some good ones. And again, Joe, just thanks so much for taking the time out this week to talk to us. And again, we appreciate this resource, the NIV Life Hacks Bible. That's something we hope many more will pick up and can utilize and benefit from. So thanks for all your work on that.
Oh, thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for tuning in this week to the Local Youth Worker. As always, we hope you've been encouraged and equipped in your call as youth workers. If you take time to rate this podcast on iTunes, that would greatly help us. As always, we want to thank Joe Deegan for providing the music and encourage you to go out and purchase his newest CD, Cover and Title Page, which you can find at iTunes. See you guys next week. Have a great weekend.
Oh, come and buy without money. Oh, come and feast without pay. For the King has opened his banquet hall to the beggar, the outcast,